Welcome back, everyone, and in today's video lesson we are going to look at the concept of invertible intervals. Let's go ahead and get started. So invertible intervals are the idea that we can take an interval and we can invert it. We can flip it around, and so think about something that was maybe pointing up, and to invert it would mean it's now pointing down, or if it was this direction, it's now pointing this way, okay? And so if I take this idea and I apply it to my intervals, what we're going to basically say is that the ones are going to be the same thing as eights. Likewise, twos will be the same as sevens, threes will be the same as sixes, and fours and fives are also the same. So kind of a neat thing to think about. If I had told you earlier that a 2 is the same thing as a 7 in terms of scale degrees, that might turn some heads. It's a little strange, but let's see if we can prove that. So if I start here with my intervals set up, and if I look at, let's say, this interval from C to D, that interval is going to be a major second. But let's go another step further, and what if I wanted to go from D instead? So starting from D, and saying, well, what is D to C? Well, D to C would be a minor seventh. And if you weren't sure about that, you could prove it either using the D major scale or the D minor scale would be fine. But that's going to be a minor seventh. And I could do this a few different ways. So what about if I looked at this interval, C to F? Well, from C to F is going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So from C to F is going to be a perfect fourth. But what about the inverse of that? What if I went from F to C? What would that interval be? Well, F to C is F, G, A, B, C, which is going to be a perfect fifth. And so what the idea here is it depends on your perspective. If I'm given two notes, and I don't really understand which of the two notes is the most important, I'm just given two notes, right? And so somebody just kind of says, here's note 1 and here's note 2. Am I supposed to, assume that C is the root, or should I assume that E is the root? If I'm assuming that C is the root, then this would be a major third. If I assume that E is the root, then this would be a minor sixth. It's kind of interesting. And you go, well, wait a minute. What if the C was on the bottom, right? What if the C was the lower of the tone? And that actually turns out to be inconsequential because we can invert intervals. We can move them around. We can put the top on the bottom on the top. We're allowed to do all kinds of stuff like that. So let's kind of explain this a little bit better. And let's say if we look at here, P1 and a P8. Then let's look at minor second. We're going to say that essentially that's the same thing as a major seventh. Then a major second is the same thing as a minor seventh. And then we could say minor third is the same thing as major sixth. We could say that major third is the same as minor sixth. We could say that perfect fourth is the same as perfect fifth. And finally, our augmented fourth and diminished fifth are the same. And so that's interesting. You could take any note in the whole world, and if you start assuming that note is your root, and you went to that other note, that distance is going to be related to the distance of going from that note kind of backwards to A, right? So A up to whatever note, this could be B, C, G, Q, whatever, and then that note going to A, it's not going to be the same distance. Absolutely not. It will not be the same distance unless it happens to be an augmented fourth or diminished fifth, but it's going to be the remainder of our scale, essentially. So you could see that here we had a perfect fourth, and what was the remainder of our scale? A perfect fifth. Here we had a major second. What was the remainder of our scale? It's going to be a minor seven. We can also see that these intervals are flipping. And what I mean by flipping is here we have, if we look at pink, we have minor second paired with a major. Here we have major paired with a minor. Minor paired with major. Major paired with minor. Perfect paired with perfect, and over here, perfect paired with perfect. So that's interesting. Our perfects are paired with other perfects. our augs are paired with diminished, right? So symmetrical systems, and our minors are paired with majors. And that is how we look at the perspectives for invertible intervals.